I started my own business when I was 8, and then when I was in college, I thought college was pretty dumb. So I went and started another business, did really well. Got to travel the world after I sold that business, and then started more businesses. Ended up back in corporate America for a little bit, and then I woke up and I was like, "Why did I do this?" Quit and went out on my own again, and kind of got to here. Businesses have ranged anything from door to door selling. Did that when I was, 8, 9, 10 years old, all the way up to right now. We focus mostly on helping people with public speaking, getting on stages, and scaling their business through live events, workshops, webinars, things like that. And then I also have a business that is in the investment space. We help people who have made $500,000 or more
Mhm.
invest their money so that they can earn passive income for the rest of their life. The real pathway to freedom, if you will. You can start your own business, which I think is great. You can do the entrepreneurship route, but so many people never set aside money that they never actually reach true freedom, which means to be able to do what you want, when you want, where you want, how you want.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stephenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our ongoing goal is to help you live your best audacious life ever. I'm totally delighted to have you here with us today, and I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to join us. Now, in the journey of life, just like going to the gym, taking action, overcoming excuses, and maintaining emotional control are essential for growth. Similar to building strength at the gym, facing challenges head on with perseverance helps us achieve our goals. Now, Steve Werner is a seasoned entrepreneur who started his journey at a very young age of launching businesses. His success story serves as a beacon of inspiration for inspiring individuals looking to carve their own path in the business world. Steve's experience in entrepreneurship and his journey from humble beginnings to success makes him the perfect guest for today's episode. His insights on taking action, overcoming obstacles align with this theme of audacious living. So without any further ado, let's check out our chat with Steve. Enjoy. Hey, Steve, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I certainly appreciate you taking the time to be here, my friend. Thank you.
It is my pleasure. It is an awesome day in the world, and I love having great conversations. I know that's what we're going to do today.
Well, and we were just sort of talking offline here before we got going about just that, like the art of the conversation and how impactful it can be for others, and simply by a matter of listening or eavesdropping, if you will, to what we shared today. The fact that someone could take it and use to better their lives is just an awesome thing to be a part of. And so, thank you for being here to help this move forward. So here on this podcast, we do talk often and encourage individuals to live their best audacious life. And you don't have to be different for everyone. We're all on our own individual path. We're going to have our own set of circumstances, own challenges, adversities, what have you. But and that's a pathway that we're required to own. It's incumbent on us that we own our steps, own our pathway, own everything about it to get to this place. And so maybe as a starting point, you can fill our listeners in a little bit about you and your journey and what's gotten you to the point that you're at now.
Sure. So I've been here for 46 years, 46 years on this planet. Started off down very traditional route, right? Going to school, going to probably having my own, working for somebody. I started my own business when I was 8. And then when I was in college, I thought college was pretty dumb. So I went and started another business, did really well. Got to travel the world after I sold that business, and then started more businesses. Ended up back in corporate America for a little bit, and then I woke up and I was like, why did I do this? Quit and went out on my own again, and kind of got to here. Businesses have ranged anything from door-to-door selling. Did that when I was, 8, 9, 10 years old, all the way up to right now. We focus mostly on helping people with public speaking, getting on stages, and scaling their business through live events, workshops, webinars, things like that. And then I also have a business that is in the investment space. We help people who have made $500,000 or more
Mhm.
invest their money so that they can earn passive income for the rest of their life. The real pathway to freedom, if you will. You can start your own business, which I think is great. You can do the entrepreneurship route, but so many people never set aside money that they never actually reach true freedom, which means to be able to do what you want, when you want, where you want, how you want.
Mm-hmm. No, that totally is. I mean, that kind of freedom is a wonderful thing that, interestingly enough, so many people want, but actually, those that do it actually do it. It's two different things there, and so
Sure.
it's really awesome to hear you spend some time in that space helping others achieve that financial freedom. I'd love to kind of sort of get a handle on why entrepreneurship was always a big thing for you. Was it a calling, or where did that bug come from? 8 years old. Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, the story could not be any further from like, trust me, there's nothing special about me at all. I was being raised by a single mom, and we were at the mall doing back to school shopping, and it was 1986. It was the year, maybe 85 or 86. It was the year Air Jordans came out, and everybody wanted a pair of Air Jordans, including me. And we went into the finish line, and my mom gave me a budget. I think it was $30 is what I
Okay.
was allowed to spend on back to school shoes.
Hmm.
And you couldn't get a pair of Nike Airs for that. You couldn't get anything for that. You got like the Walmart shoes.
Maybe the laces.
Yeah, right. Um, I just remember like we went out on the bench afterwards, and my mom was explaining to me why I can't have them. And I was 8 years old, so highly emotional 8-year-old kid. I'm throwing a tantrum, and I remember sitting on like the metal bench with like the crosshatched grating and like sitting there. And my mom, in passing, said, "Well, if you want shoes like that, then you're going to need to go get a job." And I don't like, I wish I could go back and remember the exact thought process. I remember saying those words, and somehow I was like, well, I'll go get the lawnmower and I'll just start mowing yards. So that's what I did. I went home, I dragged the lawnmower out of the garage like that day. I probably told my mom, and I think my mom, you hear an 8-year-old kid talking, you're like, whatever, they're going to go do XYZ. Well, sure enough, I walked up and down the street and I mowed enough yards that I made the $100 that I needed. And I went to the mall the next day on my bike and bought the shoes. Well, I came home, and my mom thought I had stolen them. I mean, we were a good Christian family. We went to church. She was just like, "Where did you get those shoes?" I said, "Well, I mowed enough yards to pay for them."
Wow.
And she was like, "Come on, like what?" And that was the truth. So that kind of started it. And I just started going up and down the street every week, mowing yards, raking leaves,
Yeah.
cleaning gutters, doing whatever anybody needed. And by the time I was 10, like I had a shoebox full of cash, you know?
Love it. I love it. I love it. That's awesome. And what's really great about that story, Steve, is the whole, so these Jordans was the goal. So, and it was something that you worked towards. And I think the key and goal, there's one of the underlying benefits of goal setting is, you get that thing you're after, but you got to set that goal, right? And
Oh,
you
yeah.
gotta be focused on that, and you got to move in that direction and do everything possible to get there. And you clearly did that.
Yeah. I mean, that was like a very simple thing for an 8-year-old, right? I want X thing. I'm going to go get X thing. I remember the next like there was something that came out called a Sega Genesis, which was like the new highfalutin video game thing at the time, right? It was $350.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
remember
That came
walking in.
that came after Nintendo, man.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
remember walking in and paying for it in cash, like counting out like fives and ones. And I mean, onward and from that, I wanted a new bicycle. I went and bought a new bike. When I was 16, I went and bought a car. Um, you know, the and that kind of like that stuck with me. When I was in high school, I waited tables and I sold Cutco knives. I don't know if you would know what Cutco is, but it's like door-to-door sales for knives.
Gotcha.
Um, but I did well with that just because it taught me to learn to talk to people, to learn to have conversations,
Yes.
um, which is really I'm not a big salesperson. You would never see me. I'm not a sales dog. I don't sit on sales calls all day, but I have a lot of conversations. I'm never scared to talk with somebody, and if I can help them, I will. So that was kind of high school, and then college. I was there, and I was like, what am I doing here? Like, this sucks. Uh, I don't like math class. The but that led to me. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Yeah.
which led to me then trying to buy real estate with no idea what to do. It took me about a year. It took me a little less than a year, and I ended up buying an apartment building using what was talked about in the book, and then kind of from there just bought and more real estate. I didn't have any money. I didn't have like anyone listening is like, oh, you just went and bought real estate. I'm going to go back to it. Took me almost a year of having a lot of conversations, getting doors slammed in my face, getting
Hmm.
told no
Hmm.
repeatedly. Banks laughed at me because I was a college kid. They were like, you don't have a job, you don't have a degree, you don't have any savings to speak of. Like, I had a couple grand as a college kid, which was great, but it wasn't enough to get a home loan, right?
Sure.
And then eventually I ran into a landlord that sold me an apartment building. Um, and that like I had to have a lot of conversations to get there. Like that's the thing that people miss. They're like, "Oh, you must have had it easy." No, I went out and
Right.
banged on a lot of doors.
Right, right, right. And you know, the part about that story that I think is so important is the fact that you did put in the work that people you did put a lot of that unseen work, right? You put in time, effort, energy, accepted some door slams and some failures, if you will, along the way, and that journey isn't really different from a lot of successful people that they experience great levels of disappointment and defeat, disheartenment, all of the dis words you can think of that aren't good. They've gone through it, but through those moments of dis, right? You learn, you gain some insights, some fortitude, which is never a bad thing,
That's
and you
great.
right and you push forward. So I think those are some really positive benefits from that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like anyone who wants an easy life, there was a quote I heard from Tim Ferriss, and he got it from somebody else, but I can't remember who it was.
Mhm.
But it's easy choices equal a hard life. Easy conversations equal a hard life. Hard choices and hard conversations equal an easy life. And it seems like it's ironic, but it's not. If you can't learn to deal with failure, if you can't learn to overcome it, that's where the joy comes from in life. Like, joy is not the same as happiness.
Right.
Happiness is what's going to give me immediate pleasure, but usually leads to long-term unhappiness, right? I'm going to eat all the ice cream. I'm going to sit down and eat a pint of ice cream every night because it tastes good. Sure, that might make me feel good for 30 seconds, but then my weight and my health and everything else is going to suffer from that. Whereas if I go to the gym for 30 minutes, yeah, those 30 minutes might be harder than average, but I'm going to feel better the rest of the time. Plus, I'm going to get the endorphin rush. But more than any of that, I'm going to get the pride that I take in myself. I'm going to get the personal meaning derived from doing the thing. And
Gotcha.
the same is true with anything you do in life.
Okay, a big question here for you then. So, why do you think more people are being held back or not taking that step forward? What do you think's going on? Why more aren't jumping on board this?
Yeah, sure. We live right now, today, we have more options than we have ever had before.
Hmm.
You can go on Amazon, you can buy anything you want, have it delivered to your door, usually within 2 days, right? You want information. So 25, 30 years ago, you lived in a time where you had to go to the library or you had to go to a bookstore and buy a book. You had to then sit down and spend 8 to 10 hours reading the book. Then, if you were lucky, maybe you could go somewhere and meet the author to ask them some questions.
Hmm.
Nowadays, you can jump on YouTube, you can learn anything you want. You can Google it, you can find information, you can go get the book, a digital
Yep.
thing, it'll be on your Kindle in 30 seconds. You
Yep.
can ask ChatGPT to speed read it for you and give you the top 10 actionable things.
Hmm.
All of those have made us lazy. I'm going to say that again because you guys are probably all like, yeah, all that information's there. If somebody would just tell me what to do. I've had that conversation. Somebody's like, well, just tell me exactly what to do. Go start doing stuff. That's how you learn. When I went door to door, knocking on doors to mow yards, I
Yep.
learned what you said to people to get people to say yes, and what you learned is to tell people say no. I want you guys to hear this because I still learn every day. I have bad days. I probably have more bad days than most people think. Like most people, because I constantly strive to put myself in difficult situations where I'm learning. When you run a multi-million-dollar business, there is a much like if I go hold a live event, I've got 50 employees that I have to manage. I have to make sure the whole event goes off without a hitch. I have to
Sure.
know how to do all of that stuff, and I have to manage all of it. And when something goes wrong, it doesn't cost me $1. It costs me 100 grand. It costs me 150 grand.
Yeah.
Like that. And it's okay because I know that I can still go make that amount of money. I can recoup it. But it's like, man, it's people want to get to the top, right? And I'm nowhere near the top. I still have a long ways to go. But every step you go up, it doesn't get easier. It actually gets harder. But you have to rely on the strength that you have, that you've built. It's the same as going to the gym. When you first go to the gym,
Sure.
you're going to struggle to do, probably the bar. You're going to sit there, you're going to bench press 50 pounds or 100 pounds.
Yeah.
But then you keep doing it and you get to the point that you can lift 200 or 300 pounds without a problem. And you know the form that you need, you know the cadence that you need, you know how to work your way through the gym. Like all of those things, it's all a learning process. I know that's a really, really long answer to your question.
Well, it was a big question. I prefaced it by saying it was a big question, so a long answer is fitting.
Yeah.
And I do like the gym analogy because the part about that is the fact that when you go to the gym, you start and then you build, right? You build on what you've done. You don't go from 0 to 60. It's a gradual improvement. And sometimes if you're not careful and if you're not keeping a track of those little small incremental steps that you're taking, you might miss the growth that you actually have because it's not going to be this big cavernous leap. It'll be a series of small steps.
It's always a series of small steps. So I'm going to go back. You asked such a good question, but there's so many small pieces to that answer. There's a book called Atomic Habits. And I think what the key of the book is when you have something that you want to do, start with the smallest piece that you can and take action. Taking forward action gets you in momentum. If this is a video podcast, you can see me moving forward, right? What most people tend to do is two things. They think about the end goal and they think that's going to be really hard.
Yes.
And so they never start.
Right.
They sit here and they say, oh, I'm not doing that. Or maybe they start. Maybe it's go to the gym. Let's just stick with the gym analogy. And they've never been to the gym before. They haven't been to the gym in years. So they get there's like two ways this can go. Maybe they get up, they get dressed, they go to the gym, and then they get there and they feel really uncomfortable because when we are outside of our comfort zone, we are uncomfortable, hence the definition. Don't stay there long enough to get comfortable. So changing your mindset to one of curiosity and I'm just going to see how this goes versus most people think two negative things. What are other people thinking about me? And I don't like this. If you stay in that's a downward spiral. Who cares what other people think? Because you know what? How many times a day do you judge somebody else? We all judge everybody, right? We're driving down the road, somebody cuts us off. Oh, that guy's just blah, 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 right? And then 2 seconds later, we don't think about it at all.
That's right.
You got to remember that. The other thing that happens is people get caught in the minutia. I have a friend who does this. If he was going to go to the gym, he would research gym shoes for 2 hours to pick the right gym shoes. Then he would do the same thing with shorts and he'd want to have everything together. And then he'd start researching workouts. Screw all that. Just go start taking action because that's where you're going to learn. Whatever plan you have, This is another quote, Mike Tyson. You know the quote I'm going to say?
I do. I love it.
That everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
In the mouth. Yeah.
And the same thing is true with any plan. I've started 5 businesses. All of them have been successful. None of them had more than a 1-page business plan. I started two businesses that had multi-page business plans, and both of those failed because it took me too long to get started. And then when I did get started, it didn't fit to the plan, so I quit. If I go back to have a one-page business plan, this is what I want to do. This is the 5 steps that I need to get there. This is what I can go take action on today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's much to be said in the simplistic approaches and the things that you can do because they're quick, they're easy wins, and they do this thing called momentum, kind of like a snowball going down the hill. Right?
Yep.
It gets you stronger, bigger, to the point where you feel unstoppable.
Yep. I mean, I still, every day I get up. I mean, if you saw my to-do list today, I've rewritten my to-do list 3 times already because stuff is like changing. And I'm like, I can't get all of that done. It's hard to figure out what exactly needs done. But if I just start taking action, I can figure it out. And yes, there are ways to optimize everything. And yes,
Sure.
you should have a task manager. And yes, you should do all of these things. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but sometimes you just have to move forward by brute action, and you'll end up seeing what works and what doesn't. Okay, a written task list doesn't work for me. I need it to be digital. Or I've written it down for a while. I have Apple Notes. Why don't I start using that? Until you start, you'll never know.
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right, and we, they're like so. I think of there's a whole host of even like self-sabotaging behaviors that are out there that we do to ourselves. Oh, I can't. You procrastinate as a big one. Oh, I can't do this until these 12 things are lying perfectly in my life, right? Or I can't take this first step because so and so has got to do this for me. And so we make up these excuses essentially. When the fact of the matter is that those things don't prevent us from taking action. I've always been a big fan, even when you're going through a challenge or there's a difficult period and you're working through it. I'm always a big fan of doing everything that you possibly can do that's within your control to the point where it's you've done it all and you got to wait. Like there's power in that.
If you just start taking action, one, things around you will change. So depression and anxiety come from lack of options.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from in our brain, we have said, I don't have any options. And if you start questioning those things, I've done this with so many people. If you start saying, well, why can't you go do that? Well, why can't you go do that? They'll say, well, I need money, right? Well, actually, I'm going to use podcasting because I know so many people who say, I want to start a podcast. You've started a podcast. I've started a podcast. So we could talk about this. In the beginning, it's, well, what do I call the show? I don't know. I need to do research. Do you? Just go name your show because you can change the name. Well, I need a graphic. Cool. You can go on Fiverr and buy one, or you can go on Canva and make one for free, or half of the shows out there, you could just go to, actually, now you can just go to ChatGPT and say, build me a logo. Right? So now you've got your logo. Well, I got to spend money on the hosting platform. To be really honest, you don't.
Not
you
anymore.
Can, yeah, not anymore. All of it's free to get started. Get started. Go do it. Well, who am I going to interview? Put a post on Facebook. Go talk to 10 friends. Well, I don't know what to say. Cool. There, Google it. Put it in ChatGPT. What are the top 10 questions I should ask? Just start. And then you're going to learn what works and what doesn't. Well, I don't want to look like an idiot. That comes up more often.
Yeah.
Probably in the last 5 questions I asked, you're like, oh, I don't want to look bad. I don't want to look bad.
Yeah.
Get out of your own way because it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because when you hear all these questions, you almost want to go back and say, I'm sorry, why do you want to do a podcast? Like why do you want to? Like you've given more reasons why you can't than why you should. Why are you sure this is what you want to do? Right. And it'll be interesting to kind of see what that discussion looks like.
Well, that is the other piece, the other side to the same coin. If you have a good why to do something, why do you want to? This is a question when people say, well, I want to make $1 million. Okay, cool. $1 million is a great goal. I don't want to tell anyone that they should not do that. But why? Well, because then I could XYZ, fill in whatever you want right there. Most people don't realize that the life of their dreams isn't going to cost them $1 million. It's going to cost them far less.
Right.
I want to travel for a year. You can travel for a year. I traveled for 6 months straight for $3,500. You could do that too.
Wow.
You can spend a whole lot more. We were talking about moving before coming on the show. When I sold one of my businesses in college, I traveled for 3 years, $3,500, all the way around the world. Got to see and meet some amazing people. You can still do that. It's not that hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it just goes back to the excuses you choose to make versus the action you choose to take. Two entirely different things, two entirely different outcomes.
Yeah. If you have a good why, when people say like, I want to start a business or I want to start a podcast, if you really have a good why, focus on that. Why do I want to do this thing? Why do I want to do this? Okay, cool. That's why I'm doing hard things. That's why I'm going to be out of my comfort zone. That's why I'm going to go learn. I think the other thing that stops a lot of people is people love to, well, I'll get to it. I'll get to it later. I'll procrastinate, right? Why do people procrastinate? Because they want to feel good right now in the moment. And that is an addiction that is fed to us by social media. It is an addiction that is fed to us by looking at, oh, I've seen all these other people. They look like they're always having fun. Behind any influencer, there is a lot of work.
That there is. I want to actually go back because you gave a really cute, funny analogy regarding those that analyze things before they take action. Now, at the same time, you're not at all saying that you don't do the analysis work, you don't do your homework, you don't research. But there is a line which you can, the expression analysis, paralysis by analysis kind of deal versus going out and take action. I wonder if you sort of talk about the significance of just taking action and what that can do for us as individuals.
Sure, absolutely. I'm going to touch on, I call it the perfection line.
Okay.
So if you have a line that goes from left to right, left is the absolute like perfect, and right, actually, no, I'm going to go the other way. Left is just because people looking at the screen. So left is absolutely sloppy, like bleh, a mess. And all the way on the far right is perfection.
Yes.
Most people will want to be as perfect as possible before they take action because they are so worried. Here's the thing. When you start a podcast, I'll use my own show. When I started my podcast, the first 20 episodes had less than 5 listeners. And those 5 listeners were probably like my mom, my dad, my sister, my grandma, and some random person from Facebook, right?
Yeah.
If I would have been so worried about having it perfect that I wouldn't have taken action, I would have never reached episode, I don't know even what we're on right now. Episode, like we're in the hundreds, which our last episode had 150 downloads in the first 5 minutes of putting it out.
I love it.
Now we're at like 500 plus probably. But to get there, I had to take action up front. Where I'm going with this line, most people in the beginning, where they should be really messy because nobody is paying attention. When you start a business, your first couple days in business, your CRM is going to be a mess if you even have one. The conversations you're going to have, you're not going to know what you're saying, but it doesn't matter.
I love it.
It can be a mess in the beginning. As you get years into the pursuit of something, and notice I said years, because there is nothing worth doing that is 2 days worth.
Right.
How long have you had your podcast?
So, a funny story I was gonna share. I actually started my very first podcast in 2008. Back when sort of podcasts were a new thing. Now they're kind of like a business card, right? Everyone has it. And from 2008 to about 2020, I think I did like 6 different podcasts in that span of time. And then at the end of 2020, I thought I wanted to start a new one, and this is the one I was going to start. And so it's been 4 years. And I remember vividly all the doubts and all the things. Like, for example, it was like, yeah, you haven't podcasted forever. Like, You know how much the landscape's changed? You know how many podcasts are out there already? Like, who's gonna listen to you? Do you even know how to do it still? You're caught in the old school way of doing it. Now, there's all these new things you know nothing about. Maybe you should try something else. So I share that because those that self defeating talk that goes in our head, nobody's immune to it. Even a
Oh,
guy
not at all.
that's right, even a guy that's done tons of podcasts still is going, well, I don't know if you should. And so, that certainly has been my experience. And that's why when you brought the podcast example, I thought about how silly my own thinking was when I've clearly put in the time that, I can do this thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, we all have that voice in our brain.
Yeah,
And I think the way it is a muscle, it is a muscle to resist that voice and say, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway. Um, Something that was shared with me years ago, and it's
uh-huh.
a simple but profound truth, is you can have a feeling and not act on it.
Sure.
Like, how many times a day we are given the choice every moment to feel happy or sad, to feel joyful or to feel frustrated.
Mhm.
And as hard as it is, I mean, do I still get frustrated? Sure. Do I still have moments? Absolutely. But I do remember that I have a choice. I will tell you, sometimes my girlfriend, sometimes my mom, sometimes my best friend will remind me, hey, you have a choice right now. Are you sure you want to be acting that way? Because
Right.
I tell them to. And in that moment, I'm like, oh. And then I'm like, you know what? You're right. Like, let's go do something else. Like anything other than be frustrated. And it really comes down to the belief of being a victim or being a champion, being
Yeah.
at cause or being at effect. Is the world affecting you? And don't get me wrong, guys, I understand there are things that happen to us that we
Sure.
cannot control,
Yeah.
but we can always 100% control the way we respond. That is freedom. And that's what our country was founded on,
Right.
that we could have freedom. And we do. Do you not like your job? Do you want more money? Quit. Go find a new job. That is up to you.
Right.
There's a site out there called LinkedIn that is always hiring. There's another site called Indeed. There's another site called Facebook. Go find it. Oh, you just heard a whole bunch of voices in your head. I can't quit my job. I can't find equal pay. I've got a whole family to provide for. Yep, maybe they deserve better. Like I don't mind answering asking hard questions.
Sure. Sure.
Me, we are at our core responsible for our actions and how we feel. You
Right.
can feel a feeling
Yep.
and not act on it.
And that's a tough one for a lot of people because there's some emotional control, emotional regulation, emotional maturity that says, yes, this happened. Right. And that's the thing. We're gonna have things that happen in our life all the time. But as you pointed out, and I wholeheartedly agree with you, not everything deserves a reaction.
Very few things really. This is the thing. People who say like, I want to feel better. Cool. Choose not to be angry.
Right. Right. But
Like
it's a
choose
choice.
not.
Yeah.
Choose to go do something else. Think something else. Oh, well, that person cut me off. Who cares? Is your life going to be any different? Trust me, I love sports cars and I love driving fast.
Yeah.
Somebody cuts me off, I'm gonna be like, what's that person doing? And then my girlfriend, if she's sitting in the car with me, will laugh. And she'll be like, come on, you drive like that too. And I'll be like, you're right, whatever. It
That's
doesn't
right.
matter. You
That's
just
right.
let it go. Like there is no reason to be angry. One of my old college friends was up visiting last weekend, and he actually said, he's like, my blood pressure's too high. Like the doctor's talking to me about stress. And I said, what do you have to be stressed about? Like his job
Mhm.
is not stressful. I know
Right.
what he does for a living.
Right.
Job, I mean, it's an average job. And he even said, he was like, I don't know, man. I'm just always worried about stuff. And I said, does it do you any good? And he like thought about it and he's like, no. And he's like, I just don't know what to do instead. I said, just think about something else. Think about something that you enjoy doing. This is why gratitude is so positive,
I love
right?
it.
What am I grateful for right now? I mean, you greeted me today. You're like, dude, I don't have a worry in the world. My life is great. You choose to think that way. I'm
Mhm.
sure if you wanted to, you could come up with things that you were stressed about.
Totally.
Right? But instead we focus on what's going right today. One of my favorite questions my girlfriend and I ask in the morning and at night. What are you excited about today? What's something
Yeah.
you're looking forward to
Yeah.
today? And then at the
Yeah.
end of the day, what was the best part of your day? Who do you need
Love
to
it.
say thank you to?
Mm. Yeah. I love that because it really forces you to acknowledge and appreciate everything that's happened over the course of the day, right? So yeah, you got in line for the grocery store and the cashier was really pleasant to you, right? And you look
Yeah.
at those, and even and when you look at those little things, um, you again, if you're not paying attention, you might miss the impact of these little actions had on you. And maybe in that exact moment when that person smiled at you, that you felt good about yourself, right? and
Yeah.
and those are the little moments that we talked about earlier, those little small things that matter, that add up to us feeling happy, as an example.
Yeah. Well, anytime you are unhappy in life,
Yep.
gosh, anytime anyone is unhappy, it's because we are focusing on what we don't have.
Mm.
We all have so much. Like you think about like go watch history. So back World War I, World War II,
Yep.
people didn't have things, so they were going overseas and fighting. And like, you think they had anything overseas? No. Like, just think about that. I was talking to somebody, a younger kid, like a 19-year-old kid, about this, and he's like, "Oh, there's no way I would join the army and go fight." I'm like, not that long ago, 50 years ago, you didn't have the choice, man.
Right.
They
Right.
were signing you up, they were shipping you out, and you didn't have a choice. You're walking through a jungle where it's 90 degrees, 100% humidity, and you got people shooting at you. You didn't have a choice. Go back another 100 years.
Yeah.
You didn't have running water. You didn't have ice. You didn't have food. You had Indians that wanted to take your scalp. Like if you wanted freedom, you came out west. Like go watch some of those movies.
Right.
Like
Right.
read those books. Oh, well, I don't have the latest video game system, or they want me to work 6 hours today. They want you to work 6 hours. Go back 100 years ago. You were working 10 hours a day just to eat.
That's it. And it wasn't a choice.
You're right. Like, and oh, I want a cheeseburger and they don't have cheese. Or I like anytime anyone complains about that stuff, I'm like, man, you look at just to be clear, I have moments where I do the same thing, right? And then I realize I do my absolute best to just be like, you know what? I've been given so much already. Like, I'd just be grateful.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I'm curious, Steve, because as you sort of look at where you're at now, a big part of your work is helping people achieve financial freedom and get abundance and be able to create more wealth in their lives. I'm very curious, sort of when that transition took place for you. I mean, up until this point, you'd been focusing on my businesses and growing, but now you're going in an entirely different direction where you're giving to others. How did that come to be?
Man, great question. So honestly, when I was in high school and college, I used to have people come up to me and ask the same kind of question. How are you doing X, whatever
Mm.
X is?
Yep.
So, I mean, when I was 17, 18, I made as much money as my parents
Okay.
because I worked and I sold Cutco. Both of those were commission jobs. So I waited tables. When I waited tables, I taught myself magic so that I could entertain kids. I also taught myself to memorize orders so I could take twice as many tables as anyone else in the restaurant.
Love it.
People come up and ask, how do you do those things? And I would try to help them. I try to inspire people because I think we're given so much in our life.
Yeah.
And I want people to be happy and enjoy the things that they have. And happiness for each person can be something different. My
Absolutely.
mom doesn't like to travel at all. Like she is a homebody.
Yep.
She's been west of the Mississippi, I think, twice. I've hit just about every state. I've lived in 21 states. I've been everywhere and I love it.
Right.
Happiness can be a different thing, but the framework remains the same. What can I do to make myself feel more joy today? And it comes down to doing something that you find meaningful. Meaningful is not playing video games.
Hmm.
Meaningful is not watching TV. The average US household watches between 50 and 60 hours of television in a week.
Wow.
They scroll social while they're sitting there watching TV. And most people, 30 minutes after, can't tell you what they watched or what they saw on social media.
Right.
That is not a meaningful pursuit of anything. Find something meaningful. That can be having a conversation like we're doing right here. That can be building a relationship with somebody. That can be volunteering.
Yep.
So I like it. I've done this my entire life. It has become more of a priority to me, I would say, since COVID. One, I saw how short life could be for some people. I lost a couple friends during COVID. I saw people lose their parents. Luckily, I didn't lose either of my parents during COVID.
Right.
But it's important to me because, one, we see people that, like, life is short. Two, financial freedom is possible. And I see so many people making decisions because they don't have any kind of education and they feel so much pain around financial freedom that they just stick their head in the sand. And we live in the information age. You can have any information that you want. Instead of watching television, watch some YouTube videos, take some notes, ask some good questions, listen to some good podcasts. And it's not easy. It's not something that you're going to learn in a day. People go to college now for 4 or 5 years to learn an entry-level job. In investing, I think you can learn enough to invest meaningfully in 3 to 6 months.
Love it.
People just cringe. They're like, oh, if I can't learn it in 30 minutes, anything worth doing,
it's
worth some effort.
Absolutely. Anything that's worth doing. And that's right. You got to put in the time and effort and stay committed to it at the end of the day. You mentioned your podcast and grow and influence, grow your impact and influence, income and influence. And as a fellow podcaster myself, I know how much effort and hard work goes into it. So I want to give you an opportunity to let our listeners know about your podcast and what they can expect from it.
Yeah, sure. If you guys want to check it out, I just love interviewing people that are in business. It can be just about any kind of business. We'll bring them on. I love talking to people. I love these kind of conversations. Like, how did people get to where they are? What obstacles did they have to overcome?
Origin stories are great, aren't they?
Oh my goodness. You learn so much. And I learn stuff every single day. I never want to stop learning. I never want to stop growing. I feel like those are the things. If people do want to reach out to me, you can go to steve.coffee, steve.coffee. You got a couple different things on there. I teach public speaking. So there's a course on how to do, it's called Death to Bad Webinars. It's web presentations, but it's basically how to be a great speaker, how to use stories. There's some investing advice on there, and there's a link if you want me to come speak. And there's also a link to book a call with me. Happy to help you guys out however I can.
That's amazing stuff. And again, I love the mission, particularly that piece that you're giving back and wanting to help others, live their best audacious life. And so that's very cool. Steve, thank you for doing this today, man. This is great. I appreciate the insights. I love the convo, and the mission is a fantastic one that you're on. Thanks for being here, man.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for being such a great interviewer and having me on and allowing me to ramble a little bit.
No problem. Rambling is what makes the world go round, as I see it. So nothing wrong with that at all. Take care, Steve.
Thank you.
Back, we are here on the podcast, and much thanks and appreciation goes out to Steve for being here. In our conversation, he emphasized the importance of perseverance and unwavering determination in achieving success. By sharing his journey, Steve encouraged listeners to pursue their goals with passion and resilience. Now, if you'd like to connect with Steve directly or learn more about his entrepreneurial journey, you can find his contact details in the show notes below as always, and certainly encourage you to reach out to him for valuable insights and guidance. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for tuning into the Audacious Living Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, follow, subscribe, or share to help our podcast reach even more individuals seeking to live their best audacious life. Your support is greatly appreciated. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stephenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.